Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to a new episode of the Amista podcast, First Sip, Then Sup. Inspired by Shakespeare, today we'll focus on an important question that comes up in practically every SAP roadmap: to BTP or not to BTP. When is it the right strategic choice, and when is it only adding cost and complexity to your landscape? We'll focus on the impact of your current SAP status, ECC, S4 in transition, and the impact and the relevance towards BTP, but also zoom in a bit on architecture, integration, governance in general, and the costing principles within BTP. Joining me today, we have two experts in the field, Michiel, Sandesh. Very warm welcome to you as well. And to start, in a short way, who are you? What's your background in SAP in general, but also specifically related to BTP?
All right. Hey, Jeroen. Happy to be here. I'm always on the other side of the table because I also have my own podcast, but it's quite strange to sit on this side of the table. I'm the lead of integration unit in our technology and integration division. I have been a SAP ABAP developer in SAP CRM landscape for quite a few years. And then I found my love towards building bridges between the systems rather than building the systems themselves. So yeah, I'm the guy who's basically trying to keep things in peace when there is a chaos between two systems. Yes.
Nice. Thanks. And I'm Michiel. I'm the division director for technology and integration at Amista. I started 6 years ago, a little bit more than 6 years ago, as a technical consultant directly on BTP. So that was my first SAP experience. But I had the opportunity to work on a lot of different domains. So I compare myself more to a generalist than a specialist. But it helps me in my role today as division director because I know a little bit of everything, but nothing really well.
All right. First of all, to set the scene right, some of the listeners probably are already quite experienced in the BTP landscape. For some, it might still be quite new and a complete black box. To make that clear for everybody, how should we describe the BTP platform and the capabilities?
I'm going to use the analogy I always use in our teams as well. For me, the business technology platform is like a box of Lego. You have a lot of building blocks that you can use to build your own solution, to build your own house. But you also have already pre-built blocks that can be used in your processes. So you don't always have to start from scratch. You have the possibility to do everything in a flexible way, the way you want it, but you also get a lot of pre-built blocks already that already take care of parts of a certain process. So that's why I always compare BTP with a box of Legos.
I like this analogy quite a lot because in the daily business that we do with the customers, it's always a challenge to explain what BTP is about. Even seasoned SAP people who are working in the ERP landscape for many years, for them, it's still a black box. They don't understand what it really offers. But for me, BTP is not a technical tool, but it's more an architectural choice an enterprise can take. Why? Because BTP can be that deciding platform for the next 15 or 20 years of your SAP landscape. So companies must treat BTP as a foundation layer of your SAP landscape.
Okay. Sounds like something like a must-have within your SAP landscape, I would say. But yeah, among the listeners we have, I think many organizations are in a different phase of their SAP journey. So I think that's a question that's very relevant for them. What is the impact on being on ECC or being on S4 or being in transition and the relevance of BTP at that moment? What's the impact actually of the current status of their journey and the potential of BTP?
In my opinion, it doesn't matter where you are, whether you are still on ECC planning a migration, whether you're mid-migration, whether you're already a couple of years on S4. It doesn't matter where you are. BTP is always relevant. Maybe it becomes even more relevant once you're on S4, but also on ECC, it also already makes sense. The reason why I'm saying that is if you are still on ECC, you can take the opportunity to use BTP to take away some complexity from your ECC system, which will make a transition to S4 or a cloud ERP much easier because you already take away part of the complexity. The same applies when you're mid-migration. All of the developments that you still want to do, what we usually see with customers is they have a development freeze while they are transitioning. But sometimes it takes 1 year, 2 years, 3 years that you are not doing any new developments, not any innovations. By using BTP, you can already do it. There is no reason why you wouldn't develop still, but then in the new way of developing, the new way of thinking, let's say the architectural choice that Sandesh was referring to. And once you're on S4, of course, then BTP should be your central platform for all of the extensibilities you want to do, the integrations you want to build. Mm-hmm. So once again, I think on every stage, it makes sense to already use BTP, but maybe it becomes even more important the further you are in the life cycle.
I agree with you in a way. I like to agree on many things with you, but I disagree a little bit here because a lot of people I speak with, they are like, okay, we will use BTP once we have onboarded onto S4 journey. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, I'm going to eat healthy after running a marathon.
Yeah. But that's exactly my point. You shouldn't wait before you're on S4. You can already start now. You shouldn't wait for innovations to happen after you have migrated. Already do it now. Take the time. You have the time now. Although, we have to be honest, of course, it's already a big project normally, such a migration. But if you see any possibilities to already take away some complexity, to build some innovations, no reason to wait. Like you were saying, indeed, no reason to wait to eat healthy after a marathon.
Yeah. And if we try to do that, how do organizations manage that? Do they approach it with the typical waterfall approach, the more classic way, let's say, like we do the analysis in the beginning and we make the entire blueprint of our SAP landscape and the role of BTP in it? Or is it more the agile approach where we see what kind of challenges appear during the migration or what kind of opportunities we see? How do you feel about it? What's the most used approach, let's say, in customers that we have?
Yeah, it's always a debatable point to really decide on which strategy is good. But honestly, in my opinion, waterfall approach will not work well when you want to get onto the BTP journey. Mm-hmm. Why? Because typically when everybody starts with the BTP, you will try to put everything in your scope, initial scope, like, okay, I'm going to build these integrations, I'm going to build these extensions, I'm going to build these automations. But it always happens that in this long journey of migrating from ECC to S4, where you have written a lot of Z code, user exits in ECC for the last 15, 20 years, you will discover a lot of things in this journey. Like there is some hidden magic, hidden custom process which is running in ECC buried somewhere, and you want to move that to BTP in the mid of the project. So you discover a lot of these little things that you want to move to BTP. So you got to be pragmatic, but dynamic in this approach where you onboard new stuff when you discover to be on the BTP platform. Mm-hmm.
We've seen it plenty of times already. Yeah? Thinking upfront, okay, we need these 5 integrations, and that's going to be it. We're going to build this on BTP, and then we're good to go. But then during the migration, they suddenly find 20 other background jobs running in ECC that also need to be migrated. So you need to be flexible indeed in your approach, and that's why I think Agile works a lot better. What I also think is important is it's implementing BTP isn't a one-off project. It's not a one-time project. It's a more way of thinking on how to develop and where to develop it. So you cannot define upfront everything that you need to do. It's, like you were saying, a journey where you get into, and it should be a reflex when you want to develop something. Okay, let's consider BTP for this development.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think we already touched on a very important topic, let's say, the current status of the SAP landscape where the organization is in. And it brings us to the next topic, let's say, clean core. It's
we knew it was coming.
It's a topic that's around everywhere. It really is the new mantra of SAP. But that brings me to the question: is it only a marketing line, which SAP is quite good in? Let's say, in making these kind of statements. So, is it only that marketing line, or is it actually already something that's being put to practice by organizations that's been adopted?
I was really looking forward for this question because I knew it's going to come. One thing, the clean core is not a punchline anymore. SAP has been using it for quite a long time. Even now, it's still, if you just run into any marketing slides of SAP, it's always there on one of the first few slides. But in my opinion, it's not a punchline. It's not a kind of a tagline of SAP. It's put in reality by all the customers now, because they know the pain that they carry with the custom code in ECC for so many years. So they know how these custom code can slow down your upgrades whenever you want. Even on ECC, if you want to upgrade to a new version, it's such a painful thing if you have such custom integrations, custom workflows built. So the SAP program managers also in every organization, they're gambling with these deadlines from SAP that ECC's end of maintenance is approaching 2027, 2030. So we need to really upgrade our systems. So they're really exhausted with this, catching up with these deadlines. So in the future, they want to be in a state where, okay, if I want to upgrade my ERP system, it should be a smooth journey. It shouldn't be a painful journey. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of important to keep this core clean rather than building all the, making your ERP core complicated, build everything in a core clean standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To avoid the migration nightmare every 6 or 7 years, to make sure that doesn't happen anymore.
But I heard you say, we know it's important, and we do. We know it's important. And even our customers know it's important. In a lot of meetings, we hear it. Clean core, clean core, clean core. But then on a Friday afternoon, custom development, bang, just on stack in the ERP system. We all forgot about clean core.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So listening to the both of you, it seems that the adoption is there. And that companies are quite aware of the importance of the clean core concept, but it's not always black or white or completely straightforward, and there remains a gray zone there, I would say. Mm-hmm. And the migrations that happen, it's not really like small projects, they're quite large actually at that moment. Is it only, let's say, a technical exercise to do the migration, or do we see that customers really take the opportunity at that moment to take a step back, look at the processes that we actually have, challenge the processes? I think the answer is yes, because we hear it when we talk to customers. But then I think it's difficult to find the balance in what are we going to do when it comes to process standardization? What is SAP core, let's say? What are the capabilities of BTP? Yeah, how do you feel about the total concept of all those things together? How do organizations manage that?
What we often hear as well is the fit to standard. It's important. But why is it important? The past years, I've seen a lot of customers that say, yeah, but we are unique. We have unique processes. That's why we need all of these custom developments, because we're not the same as all of the other companies. In reality, I beg to differ. I don't believe that they're unique. Their processes are exactly the same for most of them. So the fit to standard, yes, definitely needed. We need to work first on the functional processes and make sure that these processes are standardized. But then, of course, you always have reason to deviate a little bit. Maybe not of the process itself, but maybe you want to extend it. Maybe you want to expose something to external people that you don't want to do in your ERP system itself. And then it can become useful to do custom developments, but then on BTP. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying no custom developments are allowed anymore in a clean core, but first think about the processes, try to have them as standard as possible. It will save you a lot of headaches later on while trying to upgrade. And second, if you decide or take the actual decision to build something custom, whether it's an integration, an automation, and certain app development, then do it on BTP in a clean core way.
Okay. It might feel a bit odd, but the expression of less for less might be very relevant to use that approach today. Less functionalities, but it also means less budget. And in economical difficult times, it's also an aspect that's quite important to have the cost of these migrations to keep it down. Less for less might be an interesting way to approach this.
Yeah, okay. I fully agree, because it's also a typical sentence I say when I'm with customers and thinking about their architecture and all of the requirements they want. And they often ask me, is it possible on BTP? Of course, everything is possible. It's even possible on your ERP system. It's possible on BTP. But the question is, do you want to invest in this? Because everything has a certain cost, a development cost, a run cost. So you need to think carefully about, okay, is this really needed for us? Or can we maybe try to fit it in a standard way? Which then brings us to the less for less comparison.
In combination with the process standardization that really facilitates that, but of course requires cooperation, not only from IT department, but also being backed up by the other members of the C-suite, that they know some things might be a little less extensive as they were in the past.
Yep.
Okay. And even with that approach, probably there will be some kind of custom work that's required. It's inevitable. Now we have the clean core, we have custom code on stack, we have the BTP platform. How should we understand those different terminologies and how do they relate to each other, and which actually is the best option in which scenario?
Good question, because that's what we get to hear from the customers on a daily basis. Like, there's always a discussion around this topic. One thing, if you look at the trend, how SAP is going towards, right? Like, if there's an industry-specific solution that you need to add on top of your ERP core, SAP is not building in your ERP stack, or not on your S4 or SAP Cloud ERP. It's building as a modular application on BTP, like a SaaS solution. So you can clearly see that SAP is using its own BTP platform to build all these industry-specific solutions. To name few, SAP Digital Manufacturing is one solution, SAP Sustainability Management. These are all industry-specific solutions which are, developed on the side on BTP, right? Along with it, so now coming to the custom core, like how do you choose whether it should be clean core? Okay, if it is a clean core, can I write the custom code on stack or not? It's always a question. There is a very good guideline from SAP. SAP has been refining these guidelines. So if you actually look up on the internet, you will find this clean core guidelines framework from SAP, quite good. So they basically classified the custom code that you write on SAP, on core ERP, in 4 levels, A, B, C, D. It's comparable to in Belgium, we have this EPC rating. I think it's only in Flanders, I suppose, that we have this energy rating for the houses. So the other day, Michiel, if you remember, I was asking like, I want to increase my energy rating for my house. What can I install on my house? Like some foams on my panels or something like that. So it's more like that. You need to get your ERP to a higher level. So A is like the golden standard of SAP. Clean core classification, A is like golden standard, where you use released APIs. The SAP specifies some APIs as released APIs where you can use to build extensions on top of that. D is the lowest, where you don't want to write some custom code where you should not write. So those things will make your upgrade quite difficult. So
and I really like the analogy of the EPC label. Why? Because also for the EPC, you're not expected to jump from a D to an A. That's not expected. And it's the same for clean core. We know, and that's just reality. We know that a lot of customers have a lot of custom code on stack in their ERP system. So don't take it as a big bang. Don't throw away all of it and rebuild it in one project, but do it step by step. Gain confidence in building using this new approach, and step by step you will move up from a D to a C to a B to a A. And of course, yes, A should be the goal always, definitely if we look at cloud ERPs, but take it step by step. Don't expect the big bang in the beginning. And it's also our role, of course, as a partner to manage these expectations.
Okay. So the analogy is actually fitting. If you want to sell your house in a couple of years, you're obliged by the government to have a certain level. It's the same for SAP. If you want to have an easy upgrade, you also have to be within a certain standards to enable to have a clean transition. Let's say. Okay. Is it the same? Let's say for another question we hear quite often: RAP versus CAP. Especially in big organizations, it's really a big debate on when are we choosing which approach. Is it actually the same? What are the advantages of the different scenarios, and then how do they relate to each other?
Not just in the organizations or customers, also within our teams. Like we have pro rappers or pro cappers, that's how we call them. So people who are coming from a ABAP background, like ABAP programming language, they are more towards pro wrap, and the ones who are coming from the Java, JavaScript background, they are more pro cap. But it's a complete. We can make a new episode if you have to discuss about wrap versus cap. But in a nutshell, I want to put a perspective to it. A wrap is where you use to build applications which stay close to your SAP ecosystem, which stay close to your standard processes in SAP, where it's not touching external services or external APIs, external systems, then develop everything in a wrap. Cap is more like, we have the expert over here who's more the pro cap guy, but cap is more which uses a lot of open source libraries, which has a lot of extensibility options that you can develop.
Just to give an example, what we did a couple of years ago, for instance, was we needed to build a custom CMS module, so a content management system. Super small, but it was used to feed some mobile apps. It was using data from S4, but it was also using data from external systems. So that's the typical application that we're going to build using CAP. We have multiple data sources, not only SAP, but multiple ones, also external data sources. But we want to build it in a friendly way, so that's when we use CAP. The golden rule, I would say, and I think you already touched it, is if it only concerns your SAP ERP, just build it in RAP. Makes sense. If from the moment you have other sources, other logic that you want to apply, okay, then go for CAP. Okay. And indeed, I'm a pro capper, but that's because I'm not super used to RAP yet, so I will always choose the CAP option.
You're a bit biased, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit biased, but the technical rule would be indeed this one.
Yeah, but both are actually future-proof. It just depends on the situation and the case where you should choose one or the other.
Also, I think one of the examples that I can take, a really practical example, is one of our customers. They have a lot of in-house Java developers. A lot of knowledge has been accumulated for over the years. They have in-house Java talent. So their natural choice is to move to CAP-based development because they want to use the same skill sets, same people to probably they need a little bit of training on how the CAP framework works. But under the hood, the way they develop, they were quite convenient with it. So the natural evolution is to go towards CAP development.
Okay. Sounds like something that HR would be happy to hear about.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. We're not going to dive, like you said, Sandesh, it's content for an entire new episode, let's say, but we're going to to drop that and maybe zoom out a little bit further to take a look at the general architecture, where we typically see the full SAP first strategy versus the best of breed, a more agnostic approach. Mainly, if we zoom in on a specific part, Sandesh, you are focusing on integration projects quite often. Also, there you have different technologies that could really be relevant. How would you compare, for example, SAP Integration Suite with Boomi, with MuleSoft, or any other type of technologies? Where is the difference in reality?
Very, very interesting question because as a seasoned SAP developer myself, I had a bias towards SAP technologies, of course, right? For good reasons. So I was for many years I treated SAP Integration Suite as the golden standard for all the integration platform as a service. But after exploring the other agnostic tools like Boomi and MuleSoft, my honest opinion is both are good. SAP Integration Suite or non-SAP integration platforms like Boomi or MuleSoft, both are good. But in which context are you using a certain platform basically decides which is the right one. What I mean by that, if SAP is one of the touch points in your IT landscape and you're building integrations between multiple systems and SAP is just one of the systems, then go for Boomi or MuleSoft. They're still pretty good in doing what they are meant to do. But if your enterprise is SAP-centric, like if you have a core ERP system running on SAP, you have a CRM system, you have a HR system like SuccessFactors, an SAP ecosystem, then it makes sense to use SAP Integration Suite as the middleware platform because one thing, since these are all SAP platforms, they understand their quirks that it comes with, the different protocols and everything. SAP can understand quite well if you compare it with other integration platforms.
Yeah. You avoid starting from scratch, but because the system knows each other, let's say
exactly.
it's easier to start.
Yeah, and if if I may refer back to my initial analogy, the box of Legos with the pre-built content, it's the same for Integration Suite. SAP already delivers a lot of pre-built integrations on Integration Suite to connect SAP to SAP systems, but even SAP to non-SAP systems. But for me as well, a prerequisite is that you have a big SAP landscape. Well, big, don't get me wrong, but at least a couple of SAP solutions in your landscape, because then you can really make use of this pre-built content.
Right.
If, as you were saying, you only have one tiny system that is SAP related, I don't think it makes sense to go for Integration Suite.
And Michiel, how many times did we write a custom code for SAP to SAP integrations? Probably we can count on fingers. Yeah.
It's not required to do so.
It's not,
Almost never, no, indeed. You can just configure it. 9 chances out of 10, the integration you want is already there, pre-built for you. So you only configure, which also makes your development cycle a lot shorter. If you can still call it development, I'm not sure, because you configure it. Tricky question. We shouldn't ask our developers. Of course, it's development, but it's a lot faster because you just configure. And then in cases where you have SAP to non-SAP, Integration Suite is still more than suitable, of course, because you can build it from scratch, but it's a different development cycle.
All right. And in the domain of integration, we see quite a big evolution, let's say, when it comes to event-driven architecture. It seems to be a big thing. I'm not really into the details of it, but it's quite an evolution, let's say. Yeah, what is it exactly? And then, how important is this becoming, and why is this such a success, that kind of concept?
Yeah, I think off late, if I look back last couple of years, there's a lot of attention towards event-driven architectures, not just from it's not a sales buzz or a marketing buzz. It's really coming organically from the organizations. Like every solution architect who is designing a solution, a new solution, they want to think from that perspective. How can I bring events to my integrations and such stuff? However, to just simplify what value it brings, event-driven architecture, every organization does not like having bad jobs running in their integration platforms. They don't want to call an external system every minute or so. They just want to get real-time updates from the systems where these changes happen, right? So event-driven architectures actually address that problem. So you don't need to call an external system asking, hey, do you have some modification that happened in the last 1 minute? You don't want to call every 1 minute, 24 hours, right? You just want to get updates when it just happens. So that is what the value it brings.
To make it super practical, because I know you're not super technical, and I will try to explain it in a non-technical way, but compare it to your phone. If I send you a message, you will get a push notification on your phone. You will immediately see that I sent you a message. And that's also what event-based architectures do. Something happens in system A, it sends out an event, so system B is notified immediately. Imagine now how it used to be, where you have to take your phone every 15 minutes, refresh, and look if any updates happened. That's not the way we operate anymore. Not personally, but also not professionally. And that's why event-based integrations get more and more importance. And I would even say that customers who switched or partially switched already from batch processing to event-based integrations, I don't know anyone who wants to go back to this batch-based processing. Yeah. So it's indeed the way forward.
Okay. Was quite a good explanation. Thanks for that, Michiel. I appreciate it. And if I hear correctly, it seems it's important to really think about how are we doing things, or how are we organizing it. And actually, that brings us to the next topic: is governance in general. When we work with BTP, so useful to maybe dive a bit deeper into that topic. What we hear quite often is that it's quite challenging to keep track of. We start with BTP, but then all kind of things start to happen. It's really difficult to keep track of what's exactly happening. Also on maintaining the costs that we have there. So getting the right governance in place seems crucial. So what would be the advice to customers that really feel the same pain?
Right. I think the decision to get on board with BTP, of course, every organization goes through that phase, a lot of discussions, a lot of, what we discussed so far. But once they're on BTP, they are very enthusiastic to start building everything rapidly on BTP, because now they have a license, they have a platform. Come on, let's build up everything on BTP. They may, especially bigger organizations, they work with multiple vendors. Then everybody's on board on BTP, and everybody tries to plant some seeds in BTP and they leave it and they have no idea what it has grown into, right? So it's quite important to have that governance around BTP at the start of the project. And we also see a lot of customers coming to Amista to help them to basically create a governance around BTP because they know the pain if you don't have any governance, what it will grow into.
Mm-hmm. But that's typically what we see. And once we come in, we see a BTP landscape, whether it's big or small, where everybody has worked on, but nobody thought about governance, which is equally important because on your ERP system, you have the governance. Everybody has it. Every customer has their security teams, the development teams, and so on. But on BTP, we tend to forget it suddenly. So governance indeed is quite important. And two things I want to mention there. One, the advantage of working with a partner is we do it for a lot of customers. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. We have our best practices. We interact with the customer. We decide upfront, okay, who is going to be responsible for what, because that's an important aspect. Who is responsible, in which case. Second thing, and maybe my management will not like me saying this, but even we at Amista learn it in the hard way as well, that governance is super important because we sell it as a service to customers, but even we forgot to do it on our internal SAP systems, on our internal BTP platform. So
what happened?
There were some services activated by people who should normally not have access to activate those services. And cost-wise, of course, we started paying for the service until someone noticed, do we really need this service? Because it's actually costing us a lot of money every month.
That's exactly the seed you mentioned, Sandesh. Someone starts with it somewhere and it just keeps turning and going, but the consumption goes up. And often you're not even realizing that it's actually there. Yeah. So let's say people can get quite enthusiastic about the capabilities of BTP and start with it, but not blindly, let's say, and open it up for everybody in the organization. So even if you start small, already think about how will we manage it. And are there some, because you say we have our best practice and our approach, are there some things that you could highlight that are good tips, let's say, for the people listening on how they could do it themselves?
There are a lot of tools, I would say. You might even know them better than me. But for instance, the Discovery Center we were talking about yesterday.
That's like the Bible for BTP.
It's the Bible, You have everything on there on how the licensing works, the capabilities of the different services, the ideal architectures you have there.
Reference architectures.
Exactly. So everything you need is there. Of course, you need to find your way around it or in it, so to say. But that's just one thing. You also have a lot of out-of-the-box monitoring tools for cost control, like FinOps dashboards. You have tools like Cloud ALM to...
Alert notification service, which is a microservice running on BTP, which can alert you if you can set threshold like, okay, integration suite, I want to get an alert if my consumption goes beyond, say, 5,000 euros in a certain month. It sends you an alert, hey, you're crossing the limit, watch out. So these are the things you need to really watch out to keep everything under control.
Not too complex, actually. Just know what is relevant, activate it from the beginning, and then it helps you to keep the control on the entire situation.
Exactly.
Okay. And who should be responsible? Is it the CIO office, let's say? Is it architecture? Who specifically in the organization is responsible of maintaining and governing this?
In my opinion, you should have something like a platform team, a center of excellence team for BTP. That's how you need to build. But I understand also, to be practical, bigger organizations have the man capacity to do that. Smaller organizations, you may not be at that level having that expertise. So when I mean center of excellence, you need to have people with multiple skill sets, architects, developers, security people who can run operations. So you need that set of people as a team in the Center of Excellence team. That would be my approach. But again, having said that, every organization may not be at that level, but that is what you need to target for, to have that Center of Excellence team just for BTP.
And the different roles, they can be combined in smaller organizations in one person. Correct. But just the awareness on the different topics should be there in order to keep it under control.
Yeah, indeed. And what we also often see is people are indeed enthusiastically starting on BTP, which is good. That's a good sign. We need adoption. We need people that are ambassadors for BTP as well, because it's a type of change. So it's important that people adopt it. But what we often see is that due to this wild growth spaghetti of activating things, organizing things, there is no structure. And we need to restructure it later on, which is always more difficult than just starting in the right way. So what we can also help with is providing this best practices around structure. So you create consistency for the long run, not only in the beginning, but for the long run. And also make sure that you have people, or you can help people accountable for what they are doing. And I think that's the most important part of this platform team. They're basically challengers of everything that happens. It needs to fit in the structure. It needs to be consistent, because they're accountable for everything that happens and runs on the platform.
In line with the general IT strategy, let's say.
Exactly.
Okay. If I'm convinced as a CIO of the capabilities of the platform and how well it fits in the strategy that we have, how do I open up the possibilities, let's say, for the rest of the organization, for the business that doesn't really know the technical capabilities? What is the ideal approach to give them the pros and the cons and insight in the capabilities of the platform?
There are no cons, huh?
Only pros. Only pros. But you understand what I'm trying to say? How I'm convinced from a technical point of view, this is what we should be doing. But how do I open it up for the rest of the organization?
The key message we're conveying to, for instance, a CIO who needs to convince basically business, what's in it for them? Because for them, and when I say them, I mean business, in my opinion, they don't care whether it's on their ERP system, whether it's on BTP, whether it's on a Google Cloud platform. They don't care at all. They just want to know what's in it for me. So let me try to give a practical example. SAP will not like to hear this, but let's say you have an SAP ERP system where you maintain product data, but you also have Salesforce where you also maintain product data. Currently, hypothetically, business users are manually maintaining in both systems. We have a new product catalog. We need to maintain it in the ERP system. We need to maintain it in Salesforce. What the CIO can convince them with is, hey, okay, I see this data flow. Well, it's not there yet because you're doing it manually. But using BTP, in this case, Integration Suite, let us build an integration. You will have to test it once. And after that, no manual work anymore for you. That's the real value for them. We can automate things. We can make their life easier, basically. So they have time to focus on the things that really matter. Less repetitive tasks, less, if I can say it like this, boring tasks. And that's the real value for them. It doesn't matter technically under the hood what we are using. Business doesn't care. As long as we can create more flexibility in their job, as long as we can create more added value for them. So that's why I was starting with what's in it for them. That's the key message. We
Not what's convey. Under the hood, but only what delivers it to them.
Stay away from the technicalities, but really focus on the added value business-wise for them and personally.
That sounded like a typical use case that suits the BTP platform quite well. Maybe it's also interesting to talk about cases that appear to be matching with BTP, but actually don't really do it. That might be a useful one to also give an example to warn people what not to do.
For me, I have simple 2 rules. One is, if you're building an application which stays closer to your SAP logic, build it on SAP. Simple. If you have heavy lifting to be done, like if you want to run a heavy machine learning algorithm to be run somewhere, technically, yes, probably you can run it on BTP, but you have better choices there in the market, like AWS, hyperscalers, GCP, or Azure for that matter. You can run those models over there. But for BTP, if you want to build something really close to SAP, you want to extend your standard processes with some side-by-side extensibility, go for BTP. Yeah.
If I can even, or smash it even further down, for me, the trick is simple. If SAP is the center of gravity, BTP fits naturally. If SAP is only a footnote in whatever you want to build, you're probably forcing it to be used. So that's the basic rule of thumb, I would say.
Okay. I think also what you just mentioned, Sandesh, is an interesting one. For example, the LLM models. It's possible in SAP, but it's quite expensive, of course, there. And that brings us indeed to the cost part of the BTP exercise. I think that was already a good example, but that's something that we hear as well. We started using, but the consumption or the costs of using BTP suddenly explodes, what are traps, let's say, where people usually step in that have a big impact on the pricing that could be avoided?
Yeah. So the first and foremost thing that we advocate to our customers is that who wants to get onto BTP, or even who are already on BTP and they want to explore some new set of Legos, as we say, like new set of services, is to go to the Discovery portal. Again, the holy Bible of BTP, where you can calculate or anticipate the costs to run a service. You can fill in some parameters like how much messages you expect to go through this certain service, or how much memory do you think it may consume. It's just a baseline cost. I know it's very tough to predict how much you're going to consume, but at least you have a baseline to it. And then you can anticipate how much cost it would need to run this particular service. And then the most important part is where your SAP platform team importance comes into the picture, is they monitor how the costs are evolving in the next 1 month or so once you activate a service. You have, like, as we already mentioned, there are FinOps dashboard. You have certain different tools you can use to measure how your costs are evolving. That is one. And then very important one is that I'll take example of SAP Integration Suite, because I'm an integration guy.
You wouldn't say that.
Is that the best practice of SAP? If you look into the SAP guidelines, they say, hey, for Integration Suite, go for a 3-tier landscape: development, simulation, production. But it may not fit for every organization. If it's a smaller organization, you don't need a 3-tier landscape. Probably you just need 2-tier, just non-production and a production. There itself, you make a big difference in the cost, because you may save up to 5,000 euros a month if you cut down one tenant. So just be practical what actually fits in your landscape. Yeah.
But I think this is a typical issue we see when the so important architectural decisions are taken so quickly, without giving it a second thought, without getting external expertise. It's best practice is 3-tier. Okay, let's activate 3-tier and that's it. But those are the same customers that are later on complaining about the pricing on BTP and it's expensive. And I get the point. Some of the services are more expensive than others. That's true. But you can also influence the way your cost model looks like. And that's a step that often is forgotten, I have the feeling.
Right, yeah.
Whether it's on Integration Suite, whether it's for DataSphere, it's the way you build things that also influences your final cost. And so that's the architectural decision that is an important one to take, and also take your time to take it.
So again, it relates a bit to governance and making the right decision. But of course, it requires the right knowledge. If you don't know how or where to do it, it's quite challenging, I suppose. So knowing where to look at and how to do it, that really determines if you're able to have the costs under control, let's say.
Yeah, fully agree.
All right. We're getting to the end of the podcast.
Already?
We've deep dived in quite some topics already. Before we completely wrap up, if there is one thing that really determines if a company is successful or not in onboarding BTP, keeping the costs under control and letting it grow in the right way in the company, what would be the crucial factor in order to succeed?
For me, I'll just come back on the same thing that I started, is do not treat BTP as a technical tool, but it's more of an architectural decision that an enterprise has to take. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if I can add on to that, for me, take a phased approach. Don't go for the big bang. You don't need to implement everything on BTP at the same time. Same as for the energy labels, the DCBA. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do it at once, everything. There's no need for that. Take your time, step by step, in a phased approach to start building, having this reflex of clean code or clean core development. And also making sure that your users can adopt the new things that you're building. So the phased approach in combination with the platform methodology, I think is a strong one.
Okay. That's it for now, I would say. Michiel, Sandesh, many thanks for being here today and for sharing your insights.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
So let's try to conclude this episode with some key elements that we discussed. First of all, BTP, it's not a replacement of the ERP system or the typical ERP functionalities, but it's an innovation platform that facilitates further automation or a more efficient way of working. we can't see it as an isolated software component, let's say, but it's an important piece in the general architecture and the IT strategy. And to do it properly, it requires the right governance and the right organization behind it. Otherwise, you get lost quite soon and the control will be gone. But if you're able to succeed with that, it facilitates an agile landscape, let's say, with a lot of technical capabilities in the domain of automation, for example. Reach a clean or a cleaner core, let's say, to make sure that the nightmare of the migration project is a bit diminished and make it easier to digest. That might be the biggest concern of many of the IT managers that we have listening. Okay. Thank you all for listening, for being here during our podcast, and we're happy to talk to you in another First Sip Then Sup episode.